Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Surato Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvasya Padambujo Radha Madana Mohano. So I'll just stop here a moment. So I'm introducing also the, so some of you have come from the Gita Gyan sessions. So earlier we have introduced this mantra as well. And I think you may know. If you don't know, then the Sanskrit is here. So I wanted to introduce this mantra because in spiritual knowledge, we have three types of spiritual knowledge, right? So the first type is called Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha Gyan means the knowledge which which gives us the information about the status quo. That means our relationship. What is our relationship between who are we and who is God, and what is that relationship between us? And what's our relationship with the environment, with the material world, with the spiritual world, with the energies, everything. So it gives us the understanding of what is what. So that is called Sambandha, relationship. So that is the first type of knowledge which all scriptures will try to teach us, transcendental scripture. So the Lord, which is in charge of Sambandha Gyan, is known as Radha Madana Mohan. So this is that picture of that Lord, Radha Madana Mohan. It's a very ancient deity, 5,000-year-old deity, 5,000-year-old plus deity, carved by the grandson of Parikshit Maharaj. So, sorry, grandson of Krishna, actually, not Parikshit Maharaj, grandson of Krishna, known as Vajranabha. So he carved this, and it is said that this deity, Madana Mohan, grants the understanding of Sambandha Gyan, the knowledge of the relationship, the preliminary knowledge of understanding. And it is also described that the waist and below, the feet, the legs and waist and below of this deity, it resembles Lord Krishna very closely. So this is therefore the verse in glorification of Radha Madana Mohan. So let us continue. Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumadaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prasthali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami. So this is the verse in glorification of Radha Govinda. So these are deities in Jaipur, Sri Radha Govinda. And the first knowledge was Sambandha Gyan. The second type of knowledge is known as Abhideya Gyan. So Abhideya means, okay, we know the status quo, we know who are we, who is God, what's our relationship and everything. Okay, so what? What about it now? So how do we attain this? What is the process we need to do to get there? So that knowledge, or the knowledge of the process, is called Abhideya Gyan, the knowledge of the process, how to get there. So, and this knowledge it all rests at the feet of Sri Radha Govinda. And it is described that Radha Govinda, the chest and the body of the Radha Govinda deity closely resembles Lord Krishna. So this is Jai Sri Radha Govinda. And finally, we have the third type of knowledge, which is ultimately the ultimate goal. So the first knowledge is Sambandha, relationship. It just talks to us about what is the position of the Lord. But it doesn't reveal the intimate pastimes of the Lord. It doesn't reveal the sweetness, the nectar the ultimate, what do you get when you achieve this goal? So that knowledge is known as prayojan, or the goal. And it is described that this knowledge rests at the feet of Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. So we offer our prayers to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. Shriman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsi Bhata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swanar Gopi Gopinata Sri Estunaha. So Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, very beautiful deities. Why I'm introducing this is because later on, as we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are several ways we can look at it. So one of the ways we can analyze and group the verses is through these three understandings of prayojan. Prayojan is the end. The first one is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. So that's why I'm introducing these deities, and so we can take our blessings of these deities as we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. That's it. So before we also recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are some glorification verses which I have selected from the Srimad Bhagavatam and which is commonly mentioned also. So a few of them I will just put it here and we will say it. But I will not discuss them in detail today because we will come to them later on as we go through our Bhagavatam. Okay. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavatir naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherd man of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. Krishna Nama Pankajanabhaya, Nama Pankajamaline, Nama Pankajanetraya, Namaste Pankajangre. So we offer respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus flowers, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. All right, so we end with that. So we begin our Bhagavatam with the invocations which we are going to say after this. So for those of you who just joined, once again, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam session. So how we are going to do this is we will go through the verses and then at the end we can have question and answer. But if you feel that there is anything that you would like to stop me, please feel free to do so. You can just I'm not looking at the hands here, so you can just unmute yourself and interrupt me. So no problem with that. Also, you can type any comments or questions in your chat box. There is a chat box in Zoom. So as it comes to you before you lose track of it, so you can just put it in your chat if you like, and we can address it towards the end. Okay. So we are talking about chapter 1, right? So we have spoken the Mangalacharan just now. So let me just take obeisances of all the Guru Parampara as well. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimhaiti Namini. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaitim Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram. Om Tat Sat. Okay. All right. So we start with our first chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, right? It's entitled Question by the Sages. So let us recite this mantra, which is the first verse of the mantra. It's a very special mantra, the first verse. Later we will discuss why it is special. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadiyasya yato anyavat itaratas chartesu abhignaswarat thene brahma hridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah tejo vari mridam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo amrisa dhamna svena sada nirashtakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. So, this verse is what I would call a Sambandha Jnana verse. So, it is basically a definition of the absolute truth. So, it begins with the invocation first, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? All respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. And it continues with this Janmadi Asya Yataha. So, Janmadi Asya Yataha is actually the first verse also found in the Vedanta Sutra. So, the Vedanta Sutra is the essence of all the Vedic branch, the Shruti branch, the Vedic branch from all the Upanishads. So, from there, the essence of all the Upanishads is given in the Vedanta Sutra in short sentences, or what we call aphorisms. So in those, the first sentence was Janmadi Yasya Yato, and now it is continued with Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadi Yasya Yato also. So before I go into that meaning also, let us go one by one. So I will take the first part. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadi Yasya Yato Anyavat Itaratas Chartesu Abhignyas Swarat. O all-pervading personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, I meditate Dhimahi upon him. So this part, Dhimahi, came from the later part of the verse, right? Satyam Param Dhimahi. So what is this Dhimahi? Dhimahi means I meditate upon the Supreme Lord. So meditate upon who? Upon Satyam Param, which we will talk about later. But basically, this is what it means. And what is this Janmadi Yasya Yato Anyavadita Ratas? So this part is the first part, right? So in other words, as I mentioned before, this verse introduces the definition of the supreme truth. Now, we need to note that sometimes we say God. So we like to give the definition of God in various ways. We like to say, God is love, or God is our creator, or God is someone who gives me what I want. So like that, we have various definitions of God. Or some people will say God is music, some people will say God is Om, some people will say God is light, right? But here we have a very comprehensive and complete definition of what is the ultimate personality of Godhead. So to understand this, these few words are there, right? So we have Janmadi Asya Yato. So as I mentioned, this Janmadi Asya Yato, right? It also is the same verse in the Vedanta Sutra. So why is this? So if you read, Srila Prabhupada describes, after writing the Vedas, who is the author of the Vedas? Srila Vyasadeva. Who is Srila Vyasadeva? He is a Sakyavesh avatar of Krishna, right? So it is Apurusha. These Vedas are not written by human beings. It is coming from the Lord. So after writing the Vedas, right, then he became, he was not satisfied. And there's a long story behind that. We will talk about that in the chapter 4 later when we go through it. So, but anyway, he wasn't satisfied and he obtained the blessings of Narada Muni, his spiritual master. And his spiritual master told him, you are not satisfied after writing the Vedas because you have not presented the full definition of the ultimate truth. You have not given the full account because you have spoken about so many things in scripture, but exclusively, purely, only devotion to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord you did not mention, you did not write. So therefore, he recommended Srila Vyasadeva, go ahead and start your, what we call your final work. So the final work of Vyasadeva is his crowning glory. You know, in English, sometimes we use the Latin term called magnus opus. The word magnus opus means it is the life work of someone. So if someone has spent a lot of his time doing a lot of study, research, he has written so many things, he has done so many things, but what is the crowning glory? Like, for example, if you talk about Leonardo da Vinci, you know, everybody knows Leonardo da Vinci. So if you think of Leonardo da Vinci, what do you think of? You think of Mona Lisa, right? Of course, he did many other things, right? He was a scientist, he was a philosopher, he was actually a sort of like a mechanical engineer, but still, and he was also something like a surgeon. But his most famous thing linked to Leonardo da Vinci is the Mona Lisa, right? Same thing, if you think of Einstein, what do we remember? E equals to mc square. Or if you think of Newton, the law, Newton's law, right? So like that, the crowning glory or the work of these people is known as magnus opus. It's a Latin word which is used in English also. So you could say the magnus opus of Srila Vyasadeva is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And interestingly, Srila Prabhupada's magnus opus is also the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he also wrote many things. He wrote many books, read many short books and everything. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, he put most of his effort. So it is his, and it's described that Prabhupada mentions that he actually wrote this before he came to America. And he was living in the Sri Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, alone as a sannyasi. And at that time, he started this work. In 1962, he got it published. And later he mentions to his disciples that he wasn't sure that he could complete the Bhagavatam because he was doing the translation, the proofreading, the purports and everything. So he wasn't sure if he could complete the Bhagavatam. So what he did, before he left to America, actually, he completed the first 3 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. And especially in the first canto, he put all his realizations inside. Everything that he wanted to say, he crammed it inside the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why you will find a lot of long, lengthy purports in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But at the same time, you can get the nectar of everything that Srila Prabhupada wanted to say. So, and you know, Srila Prabhupada has said, everything I wanted to say, I have said in my books. He mentions that, right? Sorry, Mataji, if I mute you. Okay. So everything I wanted to ever say, I've mentioned it in my books. So, and everything that, most of the things that he wanted to say, he has put them in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So his magnus opus. All right, so we were talking about, back to our discussion of this first sentence, first line, Janmadi Asya Yato. So Janmadi Asya Yato, as I mentioned, it comes from the Vedanta Sutra. So here, after writing the entire Vedas, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra to summarize the Upanishads, because the Upanishads are very complicated. 108 Upanishads, and there are all these very detailed philosophical discussions. So he summarized it into simple lines. You know, it's kind of like if you're studying for an exam, imagine you're studying for your SPM or for your A levels or whatever. You have textbooks. So, and the Upanishads are like the textbooks. So you study the theory and then so many things to go through. But when the exam is coming near, right? So what we do, we don't have time to study the textbooks. Instead, we write short notes. So the short notes it has everything inside. Whatever that's in the textbook is in the short note. And sometimes only we will understand the short notes. Other people, if they steal our short notes, they may not understand it. So in the same way, the Vedas, the Upanishads are condensed and written in a short form called the Vedanta Sutra. And because people may misunderstand the Vedanta Sutra, so after some time, after writing the Vedanta Sutra, he wasn't satisfied. So then by the urging of Vyasadeva, by the urging of Narada Muni, he decided, okay, Kali Yuga is coming. I don't think they're going to be able to understand the Vedanta Sutra. Many, actually 9 different variations can be understood. There are so many bhashas, right? From that one sentence, Sanskrit is so complex that from that one sentence, they can understand 9 different derivations of the meaning. So Sanskrit is not only about grammar, not only about vocabulary, it's also about context, nirukti. When should the right phrase be used to mean some particular meaning? So to understand this, one has to study a branch of Sanskrit called nirukti, which is called context, to know the right context of phrases to use. So we don't have that kind of understanding nowadays in Kali Yuga. And knowing this, that people may misinterpret the Vedanta Sutra, so he wrote an extensive commentary of the Vedanta Sutra known as Srimad Bhagavatam. And to prove that, that's why the first verse of the Vedanta Sutra, which is Janmadi Asya Yato, he used the same verse, Janmadi Asya Yato, in Srimad Bhagavatam also. To begin with, the first verse, you see, you can see here, after the invocation, it begins. So it shows or indicates a connection between Vedanta Sutra and Srimad Bhagavatam. So it disputes people. So people may not believe, oh, you say Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary, where's the proof? So this is one proof. Later, we will present to you verses, not today, but as we go along, we will show you further proofs, how this is a direct commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. So Janmadi Yasya Yato Anvayat. So what should we meditate upon? We want to meditate upon the supreme truth, Sattvam Param, Param Sattvam Dhimahi. But how do we understand this supreme truth? So we are talking about the definition of God. So if you remember also, definition of God, we have come across definition of God in other places. Like for example, we know about the term Bhagavan. Most of you probably know Bhagavan, the definition given by Parashara Muni, right? One who possesses all opulence, who possesses all wealth, who possesses all beauty, all fame, all knowledge, all power, all renunciation. So that is one definition given by Parashara Muni. And then we also see a different, something similar definition in Ishopanishad, you know, Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnasya Udachyate. So that particular verse says, from this supreme person, so many millions of expansions are coming out from him, and they are all of them complete on their own. And though they are complete and they are coming out from this one single source, but that single source is not reduced. So, it's like sometimes you take a glass of water, you pour the glass of water, or take a jug of water, you pour it into 5 glasses. What happens to the jug? The water reduces, isn't it? But this jug, this Lord, this Supreme Person is like that jug, but he doesn't reduce. Even though so many different. So what's the right way to understand? The right way to understand is not example of water, but is the example of light. So imagine you have a candle, the one single original candle, and you take this original candle and you light another candle with it. Does the fire and the light from the original candle diminish? It doesn't, right? So in the same way, he can light many thousands of candles, go on and on lighting, but he never diminishes. So this is the aspect of what was discussed in the Ishopanishad mantra. So like that, we find several different definitions. In Bhagavatam also, we will find more definitions later on as we go. But it begins with this definition. So let us understand. Janmadi asya yato. So that means from who, yato, yataha means from who, all the creation, maintenance, and dissolution comes from. So janma. Janma comes from the word creation, right, or birth. It's the creation of the entire existence, and Prabhupada translates it also as existence, maintenance, and dissolution. So the entire cycle of creation, maintenance, destruction, everything, all of this originating, the word Adi Purusham, original. So it's originating from that person. So who is God? God is someone where entire creation, maintenance, and destruction originates from that person. That person is called God. Or a better word from God, he is known as the Satyam Param, the ultimate truth or the absolute truth. So Prabhupada likes to differentiate. God is not good enough. The word God doesn't fully describe, because sometimes people will say, there are so many gods, there is so many devatas, we also pray as gods, but actually none of them will fit the category of Janmadi Asya. Only the Supreme Lord Krishna fits into this Janmadi Asya Yatu. So second definition of God, right? So second definition is Abhignyaha. Abhignyaha Anvayad Itarata. So what is Abhignyaha? Abhignyaha means fully cognizant. Fully, he knows everything. So not only he creates, but he also knows everything, everyone, everywhere. So that is abhignya. So the word anvayat itaratas means, anvayat means directly and itaratas means indirectly. So whether it is direct or indirect, he knows everything. So he knows you, he knows me, he knows every single living entity, whether the living entity is alive, or sorry, living entity is alive, whether the object is alive or not alive, whether it is spirit or whether it is matter, he knows everything to the fullest. So that is the meaning of abhignyaha, anvayat itarata. So second definition of the Supreme Lord. And the third definition is swarat. So nobody will fit this bill, right? Not the devatas, not the great sages, not the great personalities, none of them, not Brahma, none of them will fit this table called Swarat. Swarat means completely independent. So no one is completely independent. So God is such a person, completely independent. He is not dependent on karma, he is not dependent on devotees, he is not dependent on anything. He is the source of everything. And then the last one, Satyam Param. So he is therefore known as the ultimate truth. So the word Param, right? Not just Satyam means the truth. So it's not just any truth, right? So it's the ultimate truth. And if you read the purport, Prabhupada says that amongst these four, especially the second one and the third one is very, very important. It clearly cements and distinguishes the Lord from others, because nobody is supremely independent. So why not Janmadi? Why not the creation? Because we have so many creators, right? we have the creator of this material universe, Lord Brahma, and we have the creators of our own material body. We all took birth, right? So we offer our obeisances to our parents. So like that. So we have primary creator, ultimately Lord Brahma in this material world. Then secondary creator, Lord Shiva, who is like the manifestation of the entire, not just this universe, the entire universes. But ultimately, it also comes from the ultimate creator, the cause of everything. So therefore, we have three levels. So it may be confused that way. So therefore, more than Janmadi Asya Yato, Abhignya and Swarat is more important. And when we say truth also, there are different truths. So at one level, in kindergarten, we say 1 plus 3 is 4. And then 1 minus 3, oh, there's no such thing. So that is one type of truth which we tell to the kindergarten students. But when we go to a higher mathematics level, we understand that 1 minus 3 is -2. So we understand negative numbers. So therefore, there are different levels of truth. Just like in the Vedas also, it said, all that is excrement, all which is cast away from the body, it is considered impure and you cannot touch from all living entities, right? That is one truth. But higher than that, it says, but higher than that, the cow's excrement is pure. So there is exceptions. So therefore, there is always higher truths, higher truth. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, as we read, Krishna will say, I'm giving you the confidential knowledge. And then later he will say, I'm giving you more confidential knowledge. And then later he will say, I'm giving you the most confidential knowledge. And beyond this, there is nothing further. So like that, he will say. And from here, we can understand, therefore, Param, Satyam Param, the ultimate truth is the Supreme Lord. Okay. So, and Prabhupada goes on, he gives in his purports, I just highlight a few important purports. So Prabhupada says, the chief engineer of a complicated construction does not personally take part in the construction, but he knows every nook and corner because everything is done under his direction. So he's talking about this Abhignya and he's talking about Janmadi Asya. How Krishna, everything comes from Krishna, but he is not directly involved, but yet he knows everything, more so than even the creator, the Brahma. He gave the knowledge to Brahma. Brahma created the universe, but he knows more about the universe than even Lord Brahma. So that is the position of God. So like that, atheists, sometimes they also argue, oh, we are creators. We have created, latest news, they have created honey. There's a group of scientists in Israel who have created honey in the lab. There's a startup company. So what they have done, they have taken the enzymes from the bee, they have synthesized it in their chemical labs, and then they've taken the pollen or the nectar of flowers, they have combined them, put it in a gesticulation chamber, and then finally they've come up with honey. So they will say, I have created honey, we are now God. So we don't rely on bee anymore. And I've also heard recently that the scientists are trying to create artificial breast milk. So, this is Bill Gates Foundation. He's founding some research in US where a group of scientists have tried to get some tissue samples from the human breast, which forms the milk. And they have tried to synthesize it. And they say within 3-4 years, we will do it. No problem. So they become very puffed up. So they think they are the creators. But, ultimately, they cannot understand the depth of creation. Each level they go in science, there is a further entire dimension which opens up. So new dimensions, new discovery creates new dimensions. And further they discover something more, further dimension opens up. So it continues going on. And God is the ultimate best creator. Because not only he created everything, isn't it very interesting that he created living entities also, but he created them in the male and female form. Imagine we create a watch. Do we create a male watch and a female watch? We don't, right? So therefore, but the Lord, he can create male form and female form of all creation, and he can make the creation self-replicate, create further on their own. So this is the genius of the Supreme Creator, the Supreme Lord. So then the next part of the verse, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. So Krishna says, the verse says, it is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. So Hridaya Adi, so Brahma is known as Adi Kavaye, the original living being in this universe. So therefore Adi Kavaye, and this knowledge, this supreme knowledge, Tene Brahma, is injected into the heart of Hrida. Hrida means the heart, into the heart of Brahma at the dawn of creation. So he is the ultimate source, that supreme truth. Who is that supreme truth? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? Mentioned over here. And after that, Krishna says, Muhyanti, the verse says, Muhyanti yat surayaha tejo vari mridam. So it says, illusion, Muhyanti. By him, by this same person who gave this knowledge to Brahma, by him, even the great sages and demigods, Suraya. The word Sura, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, there is the divine and the demoniac, right? The Sura and the Asura. So the Sura are those who are great personalities, divine personalities. So amongst the Sura, even they can go into illusion. So even great devatas like Brahma and Shiva can be put into illusion. What to speak about the rest of us? By the will of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, even great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. Just as one is bewildered, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. So very interesting term here. Tejo Vari Mridam. Tejo comes from the word Teja, which means fire, and Vari means water, and Mridam means earth. So just like how sometimes we see water inside fire, and how sometimes we see earth inside water, in the same way, even the great Surayas, the great personalities, can be bewildered by the Maya Shakti of the Supreme Lord. So such is his power. So this is the Supreme Lord. Now, it's very interesting. What do you mean by water seen in fire or earth seen in water? Any ideas from anyone? So I was thinking about this. So basically, here's an example of earth seen in water. We can see the mountains, we can see the land, all of them, we can see them reflected in water, right? But when you see this, we are not going to step into this water because we know this is water. This is not earth. So just like how earth is seen in water. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion, but at the same time, is the earth real? Or is the earth also illusion? Obviously, the earth is real, right? But the reflection in the water, that is illusion. So I will come back to this point later on as we go through the verse. I'm just highlighting it now at the moment. So this is Mridam, Vari Mridam, earth seen in water. What about fire seen? What about water seen in fire? So I was thinking one way we could look at it was, this is probably an example of, you might think of it as water seen in fire. It looks like it's water flowing, it's flowing. What do we know flows? Generally, we see the river flowing. So this is actually fire. It's lava, right? And another example, sometimes if we look at fire, right, something which is burning, if you look on top of the fire, you will see this area, look on top of the fire. If you look on top of the fire, you will see that there is some kind of shimmering effect, like as if there is a curtain of water which is shimmering. So that is also an example of water seen in fire. So it's an illusion. Basically, the point here is it's an optical illusion. And such is the power of the Lord. And you know, Bhagavatam, the verses are very, very poetic. So these are some of the examples of that kind of poetry which we will see in Bhagavatam in all the verses from in this canto. So therefore, Muhyanti yat suraya tejo vari mridam. And yata vinimayo yatra trisargo amrisa. So here, only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. So this is what I wanted to highlight to you just now. We spoke about how the earth reflected in water is unreal, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that the earth is not real. The reflection that we see is unreal, but the earth itself is not. So this verse says, only because of him, only because of the Lord, do the material universes, which are temporary, right? And the manifestation, it looks like as if it is real, right? And we think it is real. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the earth or the creation is not real? No, the creation is real. So that's what the Mayavadis don't properly understand. The Mayavadis like to say, you know, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. They say only spirit is real, matter is not real. It's false. But that's an improper understanding. Just like earth is real, water is real, but the reflection of the earth in the water is not real. So therefore, the Vaishnavas describe spirit is real, matter is also real, but what is unreal? The unreal is our perception of matter, which is perverted by the three modes of material nature. So because we are currently looking at the world with the vision, imagine we are taking a set of glasses and we are putting the glasses in our eyes. You know, like we take we wear what do you call this, sunglasses. So some glasses are red color, some glasses are orange color. So when we wear this kind of glasses, we see everything red or we see everything blue. So in this way, the three modes of nature have covered our vision. And when we look at the world, when we look at creation, we understand the creation, or we understand the nature of the world. That understanding, which we understand in various ways, is the illusion, not the world. The world is real, right? So this is the meaning behind this verse. So Prabhupada says, in actuality, there is no reality in the manifested world. He did not say that there is no real world. He's saying that there's no reality. The world is real, right? But the reality which we perceive due to the three modes of nature, right, is coloring our judgment, is coloring our vision, is coloring our understanding. And that coloring, known as the reality, that is unreal. Okay, so these are some complex understanding, but bear with us. As we go further in the Bhagavatam, we will describe these things in more details. But these are the first three verses, so we are starting it step by step. So therefore, we are trying to describe the meanings of this verse. So then, continues, Dhamna Svena Sada Nirashta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. So the first verse ends like this. So therefore, then before it ends, before it talks about the Satyam Param Dhimahi, it also talks about a little bit about the nature of this Satyam Param. So Dhamna Svena Sada Nirashta Kuhakam. So it says, Lord Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, Dhamna. So he has a transcendental abode, he has a place. So this completely defeats the Mayavadi concept. Because if everything is impersonal, if everything is not person, there is no personality, then what is the need for a place, right? So a place, like where do we live? I live here, or I live there, or I live in KL, or I live in Penang. So therefore, we can say a personality lives somewhere. So therefore, this indicates that the supreme truth, Satyam Param, that Satyam Param is a person, because Dhamma comes from a place. He stays there. And this place is transcendental. Transcendental, it is, and it is eternal, Sada. It is eternal. And this place completely cancels the illusion, kuhakam. The three modes of nature, they don't exist in this place. All the illusion is completely cancelled. So this is the nature of that place where the Satyam Param resides. So Lord Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. And to such a person, to such a definition of the supreme truth of God, who is Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, Krishna, I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So this is the first verse, very important verse. We like to memorize this verse, and it's a very complete definition of the Supreme Lord, which is directly linked to the Shruti mantras, which is the Vedanta Sutra. So Prabhupada says, absolute truth is in the spiritual sky, not the material sky. So where is the Supreme Lord situated? He is not within material sky, he is in the spiritual sky. Later on, we will talk a little bit more, not today. We will talk a little bit about the paradox on this. He is there, but he is also here. But in this verse, it directly says that that absolute truth is situated. So it's talking about the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord. The Lord can be understood in three ways: impersonal light, Brahma Jyoti, everything is spirit, right? He can also be understood that that spirit is coming from a source, which is Paramatma. And this source is everywhere. Just like electricity coming from, we have plugs everywhere, isn't it? There are plugs everywhere in the house. So in the same way, electricity has a source coming from the plugs. But all of this comes from the ultimate generator, which is the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan realization. So here it is talking about the Bhagavan realization. That Supreme Lord, he's from the Dham, and therefore that person is in the spiritual sky. So then Prabhupada further continues, only the liberated persons who have gradually attained to the stage of Paramahamsa can transcendentally relish this rasa dance. So if we want to understand the Bhagavan concept, if we want to understand fully the supreme truth as Bhagavan, we have to be fully purified. We must come to the stage of Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa means one who is free of all the different permutations of the three modes of nature. And he is now liberated. And not only liberated, at that point, he understands the supreme truth. So we have to come to that level. Then we can understand Bhagavan. But what about us? How do we come to that level? So, therefore, Prabhupada says, Srila Vyasadeva therefore gives the reader the chance to gradually develop spiritual realization before actually relishing the essence of the pastime of the Lord. So before we can understand the Bhagavan aspect in detail and relish and feel the bliss and the ananda, relishing it, we have to gradually develop spiritual realization. So Srila Vyasadeva has arranged this Srimad Bhagavatam, this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam, step by step, stage by stage, canto by canto, chapter by chapter, very scientifically arranged so that it will gradually bring us to that ultimate position, which is the 10th canto. So then we can relish. So, but before we go there, we have to understand the basics. So that's why these first two cantos are very important. They are known as the Pada Padma, the lotus feet of the Lord. by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, slowly we see our meditation begins at the lotus feet of the Lord. That means we give our full surrender to the lotus feet. We are not challenging the Lord. We surrender to him. We accept him as the supreme. And therefore we meditate on the feet. Then we go slowly upwards, upwards, upwards until we see the lotus face of the Lord. So this is the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vyasadeva has it very nicely. So we just have to follow the sequence. So therefore, he purposely invokes a Gayatri mantra, Dhimahi. Now, amongst all the Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam is known as the Amala Purana, or the pure Purana, the spotless Purana. Because the other Puranas, there are 18, 6 in the mode of passion, 6 in the mode of ignorance, 6 in the mode of goodness. And out of these Puranas in the mode of goodness, one of them, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is above the 3 modes, above goodness. It's in Suddha Sattva. Therefore, it's called Amala Purana. And that is the only Purana which begins with Gayatri Mantra. So this is another indication of the special position of Srimad Bhagavatam. And why is the Gayatri Mantra invoked in this verse? So Prabhupada explains. So this Gayatri Mantra is meant for spiritually advanced people. When one is successful in chanting the Gayatri Mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. So there are few ways to understand, to realize the Lord, right? So one of the ways is through meditation, which is Dhimahi. Therefore, it's called Dhimahi, meditation. And this special word Dhimahi is especially used in Gayatri mantras. So by reciting the Gayatri mantra, the concept of Gayatri mantra is it brings one from a material level, the consciousness of a material level, to a higher level. It transfers one's consciousness. The purpose of the Gayatri is to transfer the consciousness from material to spiritual, right? So the mantra is the mind. So currently we are in the material level. By coming to the level of pure goodness, coming to the level of the mode of goodness, as we chant the Gayatri mantra, it will bring us to the next level, which is Suddha Sattva. That is one of the ways. The same method described in the Gayatri mantra can also be done by the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because this is a special Vedic mantra also. So both can achieve this. So, you know, we are very kyasu. We like to take all the possible help that we can get, right? So therefore, Prabhupada describes why he invokes this Gayatri mantra. He invokes this, in the Vyasadeva invokes this mantra to again show the connection that Srimad Bhagavatam is to connect goodness to pure goodness, the bridge. You know, we want to, if we are in the mode of ignorance, we want to come up to the mode of passion. And from the mode of passion, we want to come up to the mode of goodness. And from the mode of goodness, only we can reach to the Suddha Sattva, or the pure goodness platform, beyond the 3 modes. So that bridge is done by mantra, like the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and by the Gayatri mantra. But unlike the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the Gayatri mantra needs, qualification. Very, very stringent qualification. One has to come to the point of Brahmana. One must be situated in the mode of goodness, right? So therefore, Prabhupada says, one must therefore acquire Brahminical qualities in order to chant the Gayatri mantra successfully, and then attain to the stage of transcendentally realizing the Lord, his name, his fame, his qualities, and so on. So that's a lot of qualification is required. So it's not so easy, especially in Kali Yuga, when everybody is born Shudra, right? Kalos Asmi Shudra. So therefore, we have to understand, for this Kali Yuga process, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the process to bring us to the higher level. And at the same time, we can also take the help of the Gayatri Mantra when we have acquired suitable qualification. then we can also take in the Gayatri Mantra, and together we can come to the higher position. But at the same time, even without the Gayatri Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra alone can bring us there. And even without the Gayatri Mantra, Srimad Bhagavatam alone can also bring us there. Right? You can see the background of my, what I put in my background here. Prabhupada says, right, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, then immediately you will realize God. So simply by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can realize God. So we have now covered the first verse. Apologies, I took a bit of extra time to cover the first verse. We have another 15 minutes, but let me see if I can finish today I wanted to cover the first 3 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. I wanted to do them justice, and later on we will go faster in the other verses. So just bear with me on that. So the second verse, let me just recite it. You can recite it also if you like. Dharma projita kaitabo atra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite kim va parair ishvaraha sadyo hridi avarudyate atra kritibihi sushrusubhi takshanat. So this verse can be described as Abhidheya Jnana. The verse, the earlier verse talked about who God is, what is his position, who should fit that role as God. So this is an indication of Sambandha Gyan, the earlier verse, to understand God's position, our position, and all that, right? But now, how do we attain this Lord? So that is given in this verse, Abhidheya Jnana. So here, let us go part by part. So it begins with Dharma projita kaitavo atra paramo nirmat saranam satam. So Vyasadeva says, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. So this is the level of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is not meant for material results. We can get material results from it. The Srimad Bhagavatam's position is Chintamani. It can give you whatever you want, right? But that is not the real purpose. So what it does, it doesn't go in detail to the aspects which are materially motivated. Now, what do we mean materially motivated? So materially motivated can be understood, generally, when we talk about religion, any religion, right? It will have these 4 aspects called Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Muksha. So there is some duty. We all will have some duty. Whether we are, we can be, we are husband or wife or son or uncle or father or mother. So we all have duties. And somebody's working as a teacher, or somebody's working as a businessman, or somebody's working as a priest. So we all have work. So this is called Dharma. And how to do the work correctly, so that is given in religion. How to do the Dharma in such a way that we can please the Lord. At the same time, we don't create harm to others. We don't create problems for other people. And at the same time, we can also get our desires. So that is usually what is given as Dharma in religion. For example, religion will say, don't steal, don't murder, or don't kill, right? So don't lie, this kind of things, which gives a guideline for us to perform our Dharma. And by performing our Dharma, we will get results. Somebody is a farmer, he does his work, he does his Dharma, he will get a harvest. So somebody works, they will get money, so they will get Artha. And in this way, once they get the money or the harvest, then they can enjoy their satisfaction, their senses. So that's Kama. They satisfy themselves. And in this way, they go on and on and on and on. But sometimes the nature of the material world, they get more and more trapped. in the various situations of karma, and then they become more and more frustrated until they say like, oh, I don't want anything. I don't want food. I don't want anything. I just want to be left alone. I'm sure we all have said that at one point in our lives. At least, probably we have said it many times in our lives. Just leave me alone. So I don't want anything. So that is moksha. So out of frustration, we want to be free of it. But because we are not situated correctly in the right sphere, so again, we come back to material dharma. Because the soul has to take dharma. It's either material dharma or spiritual dharma. So if he doesn't know about spiritual dharma, he cannot remain on the fence for long. He has to again drop down to material dharma, again continue. Then again finally achieves liberation. He doesn't understand spiritual dharma, again he has to come back to material dharma. So Bhagavatam rejects this. He's not interested. So he's not interested in simply talking about material dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Actually, you will find that if you have read the other scriptures, like for example, if you have read the Mahabharata, you will find a lot of things about artha, how to satisfy your material senses, what are the ways to earn wealth, to do your material duties, how to be a good king, how to be a good wife, how to be a good husband. All these things you can find in the Vedas. So these are material. It doesn't talk about the dharma of the soul. It is there a little bit, but it's also mixed with these other things. Whereas Bhagavatam is purely only talking about the dharma of the soul. That's the focus. The focus is the dharma of the soul, but at the same time, we can also learn about other things, other dharma. The material dharma can also be learned, but the focus is the spiritual dharma. So that is the standard. So this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, param satam, the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. So who can understand the highest truth? Only those who are free from material desires, no longer having material motivation. So if we want to understand that Bhagavan realization, if we want to understand the 10th canto, if we want to understand the Rasa Leela dance of the Lord, if we want to understand the intimate relationships between the Lord, Vyasadeva gives us the formula, right? By simply hearing, begins with Shravanam, by simply hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam, right? We can come to that level. But first, it's setting the standard, right? So it's clearly defining Bhagavatam is far superior from every other scripture. You will see the same themes like Mahabharata, we see Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. I've read Vishnu Purana, I've read Garuda Purana, I've read Padma Purana, a bit of Skanda Purana. So none of them have the same mood or the same the same language as how Srimad Bhagavatam has. It's very different. If you have read these other scriptures and then you read Bhagavatam, you will see a very different language of how, the mood, the setting, it's just so purifying. It just gives you, it's very different, the feeling. The same concepts are also there in the other Puranas, but they are mixed. It's like diamonds are there in other Puranas, but they are mixed with other things. Whereas the Bhagavatam is pure, only spiritual dharma. So you will see a very different way of how it is actually presented by Vyasadeva. So anyway, I was mentioning Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. I already explained this or mentioned just now. So Prabhupada says in the Vedas, these 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way. So why Vedas are giving all this? Somebody may ask. Why talk about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha if the ultimate truth is spiritual Dharma? If we want to understand our actual position with God. Because, somebody has to teach us. Not everybody is ready at that level, right? So we need to have our livelihood. We need to eat. We need to do our duties. So all these things are taught in the Vedas. in a way where we can attain our desires, but we do it without crossing God's law. That means we don't sin. So in this way, by following the rules of God, that is called Sura. One who follows the rules of God is called Sura. One who does not follow the rules of God is called Asura, right? Demon. So the Vedas, these 4 activities are prescribed in a regulative way. What do you mean regulative? It introduces the concept of sacrifice. Because without sacrifice, we cannot develop higher knowledge. It's the same, right? If we want to get love of our children, if we don't sacrifice for the children, the child will not love you, isn't it? We will see. It happens. If we don't sacrifice for our parents, then the relationship is not going to be as good. So, and same thing happens also in material situations. If you don't study, sacrifice our time and effort, then the exam we will fail or we will not do so well. Same thing in our career. If we don't put our sacrifice and, to do all the things that we need to do, then we will not attain what we want to attain in our career. So therefore, the cycle to introduce this concept of sacrifice, nowadays it's not so much. In Kali Yuga, as Kali Yuga is advancing, we don't see the sacrifice, especially more and more in the modern generation, because the world has created it that way. I'm hungry, just call up Grab and Grab will come. And where do I get the money from? Call my father. My father will just give it to me. My father doesn't want to give it to me. Okay, I'll call my mother and I will cry to my mother. Oh, my father doesn't want to give me. I'm hungry, mother. So the mother will say, okay, my maternal heart is melting. I will give you the money even though you don't deserve it. Please go and order your Grab or whatever it is. So the cycle of sacrifice is not taught. But that is what the Vedas are teaching. It gives us a regulative way. So by the culture of sacrifice, one goes higher to the culture of knowledge. And with the culture of knowledge, one comes to the culture of renunciation. So it's a step-by-step gradual process, right? So that there will be no undue competition or envy for sense gratification. So that we don't have to have these kind of problems. Why you want to envy? Somebody is having something good because it's their karma. They deserved it in their previous life. So if we regulate ourselves this way, we can also come to that level. But if we don't do this, if we don't follow religious regulations, which regulates us in our dharma, in our livelihood, in our desires, then we will fall down into animal life, which instead of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, it is comprised of nidra, bhaya, ahara, nidra, bhaya, and maitunam. What are these things? Nidra means sleep, bhaya means fear and defense, always fearing. And maitunam means sense gratification, especially sexual gratification. And ahara, which is eating. So if we are doing these 4 things, that's animal life. Human life is not the same as this. They have this, but it is regulated. So with religion, the codes of religion. So therefore, Prabhupada says, in the lower stages of human civilization, there is always competition to lord over material nature, right? So this is the problem. So therefore, religion is given to human society. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion because he thinks he can get what he wants through religion, which is good, because at least by following religion, he will get what he wants. At the same time, he will be regulated, and at the same time, he will please the Lord. Yeah, Samsiddhir Haritoshanam, and in this way, he will elevate his consciousness. He'll come to the higher platform. He thus performs pious activities in order to gain something, right? So he doesn't neglect. So therefore, he comes to the platform of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. But higher than that is Swadharma, the original position of the soul, which is to link ourselves to God, to break free from this cycle of birth and death, and to go back to God. that is spiritual. That is not material, right? So therefore, Vyasadeva continues, Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. So this is the goal of Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is to teach us how to differentiate between material things and spiritual things. How to understand the difference between Dharma, Artha, Kama, Muksha, which is material, and to understand the ultimate goal of Lord, ultimate goal of the spirit or the soul. So just like the reflection of the banyan tree, right? This is the material world, right? We have understood this from chapter 15 in Bhagavad Gita. So, but it doesn't mean that everything is unreal. Our perception is unreal. So this is our linkage of karma. All our activities, we do so many activities, we become trapped in the karmic cycle. And we take birth again and again and again and again, because we also don't know what to desire. Our desires are not pure. So driven by our desires, confined by our karma, we take life after life after life after life, trapped in this cycle. So this is what Bhagavatam will help us. It will give us that axe which will cut down this tree so that we are free from the three modes. It uproots the threefold miseries, right? Tapa trayon moolanam. Mula means the root. Trayon moolanam. It uproots the threefold miseries. So this is the situation. So breaks the three modes. And then what can do this? How do we do all these things? It looks very interesting. It looks very nice. Yes, I want to achieve this level. But how to do that? So therefore, it is called Abhideya Jnana, the knowledge of the process. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Parer Ishvaraye. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. Therefore, Kim Va Parer, what is the need of any other scripture? This Bhagavatam is the topmost. So this is what it says, right? And continues, Sadhyo Hridi Avarudyate Atra Kritibi Sushrubihi Tatshanat. So the translation is, as soon as one attentively and submissively hears. So here it tells you how to do this. Bhagavatam is sufficient for God realization. But how to take shelter of Bhagavatam? How to avail ourselves to this Bhagavatam? So therefore, sadhyo hridi avarudyate atra kritibihi sushrubihi tatshanat. So it says, we have to develop the culture of the saintly people. Sadhyo, right? Sadhyo. Sadhyo sushrubihi tatshanat. So what is this culture of saintly people? The culture of the saintly people is one attentively and submissively hears, right, the message of the Bhagavatam. Not in a part-time way or something, or or not in a challenging manner. I will hear this and I will defeat that person. Not like that, but with the idea that this Bhagavatam, with faith, essentially, right? So this culture of knowledge, what kind of knowledge? Sadhyo, saintly, this saintly culture of knowledge, right, which only comes with sacrifice, right? And that if we follow and hear, what is the sacrifice? The sacrifice, we sacrifice our time, we sacrifice our intelligence and our concentration and trying to understand this Bhagavatam. So that sacrifice is the culture of, brings about the culture of knowledge. And that, what will happen? Without delay, tat shanat, tat means without, shanat means delay. Without delay, hridaya avarudyate. Hridaya means the heart. It is established, avarudyate. It is formed within the heart. So the message of the Bhagavatam enters into the heart and takes seed, planted into the heart. And from there it will grow, 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 grow. The more we hear, the more we chant, the more it will grow. right? So that is what Bhagavatam is. So Krishna's Prabhupada says the desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So very important on that. So that is the second verse. Looking at the time, I've exceeded. Give me about another 10 minutes. I'll finish this, right? 5 minutes, I think. So the last verse, the third verse for today is what we call the Prayojan verse. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukhamukadam rutadravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. So the Prayojan verse. Prayojan means the goal. Okay, I know who is God. I know that he is the supreme person, that he is all cognizant, he knows everything. All that I know already from the first verse. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to focus on the Bhagavatam. How do I focus it? I do it carefully, right? I do it attentively, without challenging mood. Okay, now what will be the result? So here comes the result. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam. So this Bhagavatam is described as the Nigama Kalpataror. Now, Kalpataror means, what is Kalpataror? Kalpataror means it is the desire tree, the tree of the Vedas. So, Nigama Kalpataror, the Vedic tree. If let's say we take all the Vedic scriptures and imagine that Vedic scripture to be the tree. What is the root of the tree? The root of the tree is the Lord himself. It comes from the Lord, and the tree grows, which is the Vedic scripture, right? And these Vedic scriptures are known as Sanatan Dharma. It talks about the eternal duty of the soul. Sanatan Dharma. We talked about material Dharma. Now we talk about Sanatan Dharma. And this tree of Vedic scriptures has two prominent branches. One is called the Shruti, that means to hear all the Vedics. Basically, it means the four Vedas and the Vedanta Sutra. This is the Shruti. And the Smriti, which is the other branch. Like example, the Puranas, the Itihasas, which includes the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and also the pursuant literatures, such as the Tantras, and Agamas. So things like that. So these two branches of Vedic scriptures, Shruti and Shruti, Smriti and Shruti, they branch. And amongst these branches, many fruits are produced. So these fruits can be classified into a few types. One is the fruits of Dharma. So the fruit of how to perform one's Dharma properly. And then the fruit of Artha, how to get wealth, how to get money, how to get fortune. The fruit of Kama, how to satisfy our desires. And the fruit of Moksha, how to be free from suffering also. So these fruits are there. And amongst the fruits, amongst the Dharmic category, the prominent fruit of the Dharmic category is the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about not material fruit, not material Dharma. It talks about the Dharma of the soul. Krishna says, by all means, become a yogi, Arjuna. Don't simply follow the path of the Pavarga, the path of material fruitive attainment. Become a yogi, right? Take the Nivritti Marga and try to understand spirit. And foremost of all that is the Bhagavad Gita, which comes from the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is part of the Smriti, coming from the Smriti branch. Now, from the Vedas branch, the cream of the Vedas is the Upanishads. And from the Upanishads, the essence of the Upanishad is the Vedanta Sutra, right? So it's very interesting. From this tree, we have two branches coming out, right? But these two branches combine again. The Shruti branch and the Smriti branch, they combine again. And after combining, it produces a fruit, very special fruit. So from the Smriti direction comes the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Srimad Bhagavatam is known as a Purana, and Purana is coming from Smriti. But at the same time, Srimad Bhagavatam is also the commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. Now, Vedanta Sutra is coming from the Shruti branch, the Vedas branch. So together they combine, bridged by that verse, Janmadi Asya Yataha, right? And they produce what is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this Srimad Bhagavatam is the magnus opus, what I mentioned just now earlier. It is the ripened fruit, Galitam Phalam. It is the ripened, Galitam means ripened fruit, Phalam. Ripened fruit of what? Of the Vedic tree. And what about this ripened fruit? What is the nature of this ripened fruit? The nature of this ripened fruit. So here we give you the translation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literature. Okay, so this Bhagavatam is an invitation to relish it. And this is what will happen. After we come to this platform of pure goodness, we will taste this fruit of Bhagavatam. Simply by tasting, we become purified and our taste becomes even better. We will start tasting the Bhagavatam at a very high level. So that is relishing, right? Rasam alayam. The word is used, right? Rasam alayam. That means it is the residence, all right? The place of rasa. It is situated there, and it is also described in a different way that even those who are liberated, muhur ahu rasika, even the liberated people are tasting this fruit and relishing it so much. So that is rasam alayam. It emanated, so this fruit, right, this nectar emanated from the lips of Sukadev Goswami. So who is Sukadev Goswami? We'll talk about that later, right? So therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So people were already tasting this, but it has become even more tasty. So we will talk about that in a short moment. So this is Sarva Vedanta Saram. This is also described, the same concept of this Galitam Phalam, right, is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam in the last canto. In the beginning, Vyasadeva says this is the ripened fruit, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam. In the last canto, in the 12th canto, after going through all of this, again he repeats this, but he says it in a different way. Sarva Vedanta Saram. All the Vedas, the Vedanta is the essence, and this is the Saram. Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate. And Tat Rasamrita Triptasya Nanyatarasya Trati Kvachit. So it says in the 12th canto, after tasting this Bhagavatam and coming to that level, nothing more you will find interesting after this. After tasting Bhagavatam, you will find everything else to be nothing compared to it cannot compare to the taste of the Bhagavatam. So that is what is described in this. So this tree, Nigama Kalpa, this is the ripened fruit. Prabhupada says in his purport, but Srimad Bhagavatam is purely transcendental literature which can be understood. So how can we understand? We can understand only by the pure devotees, right? So we have to become pure devotees, then we can understand fully and relish them fully the transcendental competitive sense gratification. We have to be free from the three modes. And Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord rise above these competitions, they become non-envious and they become pure in heart. So, in summary of the purport, it's a very long purport, these first three verses, so I'm trying to summarize them. How should one receive Srimad Bhagavatam, its message and the lessons? We can receive this by the Kritibihi Shushrubis, which is described in the previous verse, the culture of saintly knowledge, which is patiently, we have to be patient, right? Submissively, with great respect for the message of the Bhagavatam and the author of the Bhagavatam, right? With great attention, not whimsically, eagerly, right? And it has to come through via sampradaya, through the disciplic succession. So this fruit is described. You know, if you have a very, very, very wonderful, very special fruit, do you wait for the fruit to drop from the tree? You don't, right? Because if it drops from the tree, the fruit will become, it will become spoiled. So what happens? It is carefully, the top of the tree is Krishna. Carefully from Krishna, the tree, the fruit is produced. The fruit is carefully brought by the Sampradaya and given to us. So it has to be understood in this way. This fruit is carefully protected so that it doesn't have any hits or, you know, so it is very, very sweet and we can relish it in the proper sense. So Sukadev Goswami, who presents this fruit very carefully by stages of transcendental realization. Today, we won't talk about who Sukadev Goswami, we will talk about that next time. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is so carefully presented, Prabhupada says, that a sincere and serious person can at once enjoy the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge. How? Simply by drinking the nectarian juice through the mouth of Sukadev Goswami, which is coming through in this Bhagavatam, or by his bona fide representative, that means through the Sampradaya, the Parampara, through the Guru, right? So through Prabhupada, and we are trying to present Bhagavatam as it is, as how Prabhupada is trying to present it by through his purports, and also through the insights of the Guru Parampara, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan and all that. So this is what is the first 3 verses. So I'm not going to, this is my last slide. Once in a holy place. So after talking about the 3 verses, which is like a prelude, invocation and prelude, then Bhagavatam goes straight into the, it creates the setting of the scene. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, the scene was set, how Arjuna was put into illusion. So in the same way, the setting of the scene is described by the 4th verse. Once in a holy place, this holy place is known as Animisha Kshetra. Animisha Kshetra means the place where Lord Vishnu is very favorite place of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu is called Animisha. That means one who never blinks, never closes his eyes or eyelids. So that's one of the names of Lord Vishnu. So once in this place, in the forest of Naimisaranya, great sages headed by the sage Saunaka assembled to perform a great 1000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord of heavenly places, the Lord of Swarga, Swargaya Lokaya. So here, one of the names of the Lord is Swargaya Lokaya. That means the Lord who is the ultimate Lord of heavenly planets. So with that, we'd like to stop here. So we just do a quick study of what we have gone through so far. We talked about the prelude to Srimad Bhagavatam, verses 1.1 to 1.3. We introduced the first 3 verses in this order, Sambandhanyan, Abhideyanyan, and Prayojanyan. And we talked about Satyam Param Dhimahi, the position of this Srimad Bhagavatam. What it talks about, it reveals the ultimate truth. It gives the definition of God, Satyam Param Dhimahi, the absolute truth. And then it glorifies this Bhagavatam. What need is there for any other scripture? Kim va parair. What need is there? This ultimate Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit, right? And it says that the third point we wanted to mention here is that this Bhagavatam itself is the goal. To understand the Supreme Lord Bhagavan and to simply hear and relish this Bhagavatam, the type of bliss that we get from that is uncontested. You cannot see it anywhere in this creation. So that is the goal of this Srimad Bhagavatam. So then verses 1.4 all the way to the rest of the chapter 1 up to 23, we will talk about the great meeting of sages at Naimisaranya. So the next session which we will have, we will talk about this, right? And we will go faster. We will try to cover about we will try to finish chapter 1 by the next session. Okay. So with that, I'd like to request everyone to chant together with me. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So talking about fruits and everything, today is Ekadasi. So we had fruit diets probably. So anyway, we like to eat fruits. So food for the body, food for the soul. So the food for the soul is this chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So we hope that we continue chanting it every day. Chanting it helps us to understand the message of Srimad Bhagavatam better. And in this way, we can relish the Srimad Bhagavatam better. So with that, we'd like to end. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I extended the time. I'm not very good. I'll try to cut down the time next time. Any questions or any comments that you'd like to raise before we end? Okay, let me look at the chat. If there are any questions, just unmute yourself and you can say anything. Accept my humble obeisances to everyone also. So if you can't think of anything right now, that's no problem. Sometimes it can be very overwhelming, understand. So if you do think of it later on, you can put it into our WhatsApp group. So we have a WhatsApp group for this purpose. You can also raise it again in the next session when we meet. Or if there are many questions, then we can have a separate session just to address the questions. But I doubt somehow that would be the case. But never mind. If there are any questions later, feel free to put it in the WhatsApp. Or you could just message me directly also if it's a personal nature, but it will be best if it's in the WhatsApp. Okay, so there's a question by Sonia Mataji. You mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Swarat, independent, but isn't he dependent on Srimati Radharani for love? Okay, so he is both dependent and independent. So we have to understand that the Supreme Lord, he has something called Achintya Shakti. Achintya means inconceivable. So paradoxes exist together. He is both there and he is both here. He is both far away and he is both very near. He is formless, but yet he has a form. He is nirguna, yet he is saguna. And he is, in this way, he is independent. He is supremely independent. Nothing can disturb him. But at the same time, by his own sweet will, he wants to be dependent on his devotees. So you understand the difference, the distinction. He's not forced into it. There are pastimes, there was once a pastime when Krishna and the gopis were doing their rasa dance. So, and then suddenly Krishna disappeared from view. And the gopis were searching everywhere for Krishna. And then they saw that Radharani was missing, and there were footprints showing that two footprints were leaving the grove. They followed it, and then later they saw only one footprint, one set of footprints. Krishna's footprints were gone. Only Radharani's footprints were there. So then they went towards Radharani, and finally they saw how Radharani was alone. Krishna had left Radharani, and Radharani was crying. He was searching everywhere. Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? So this is described in the 10th canto. It's a very sweet pastime. We won't go into the depths of it, but the point here is Krishna is God. He is independent, but he wants to be dependent. And therefore, he wants to be dependent on his devotees. And the foremost of all his devotees is Radharani. And he enjoys being dependent upon his devotees, not because he's forced to it, right? So that's the difference. I hope you understand, Mataji. Okay, so then we have one question by Vimoshini Mataji. May I know how many times I should chant? Well, if you are starting, I recommend 4 rounds. So 4 rounds won't take a lot of time. Actually, one round will only take about 7 to 8 minutes. if you are doing 4 rounds, it will only take half an hour. So if you can even break it, you can break it 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, you know. So it's not much of an investment. It's a very simple investment. 15 minutes of our time or 30 minutes of our time for 4 rounds. But ultimately, we should slowly bring ourselves to a level of 16 rounds. So we can bring from 4, we bring to 8, we bring to 12, we bring to 16 gradually. Sometimes it can happen suddenly. So both ways, it depends how situations are. So that is the understanding. Okay, so then there's a question by Ravindra Mohan. Is the swastika representing Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Muksha? Okay, the swastika is a symbol of auspiciousness. It's a symbol of punya. You know, punya or sukarma. Sukarma means auspicious activities. Now, auspicious activities can be spiritual, can also be material. Like reading Srimad Bhagavatam is auspicious, both spiritually and materially. Whereas certain things like, doing charity or doing yagyas or performing some austerity simply for the sake of austerity, these things are good activities. So dharma, like if we perform our duty, properly according to the scripture, these are auspicious. These are materially pious. So the swastika doesn't represent spirituality as per se, from my understanding, but it more so represents the auspicious material aspect. Karma kanda, one who is performing fruitive activities. So that swastika represents the karma kanda activities according to the codes of religion. So that is swastika. Okay, then there is one point. Okay, thank you for the kind words, Mataji. Okay, there is a WhatsApp group. You just have to WhatsApp me. Give me your name, and I can add you to the group. Okay, I will do the recording also, and I will later post it. Understand not many people can join us. I will do the recording and I'll post it later. All right. So if there are no further questions in the chat, if there are no further questions, then we will end today's session. Thank you so much for your kind patience to hear the Bhagavatam, and I hope that we can continue this session. We will have it after another 2 weeks. Right? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.